All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. Bob, I hope you're feeling better. I know you've been under the weather the past couple of weeks. Man,
No, I'm
I,
still under the weather. I'm not sure that we can blame this one on Pete Carmichael too, but I'm sure as hell willing to try.
I'm gonna blame it on the blocking. That's I I tell you what. Let's just go ahead and start with that. With the problems in the offense in that game because that was probably one of the worst played games I've seen the Saints play in a long, long time. Um, I felt that I didn't have a problem with Derek Carr starting. I thought Derek Carr played like a guy who had not practiced all week
Yep.
and was running a game plan that was really more for Jameis Winston than for
hmm
what he did. With all those quick flare out passes to Kamara, I thought that was a lot of one of those kind of plays that you saw a lot with Jameis. Get the ball out of Jameis's hand quick, make it quick, easy reads, and that kind of thing. And for a guy who hadn't practiced very much, in fact, the only practice on Friday, I thought Carr looked inaccurate and struggled with a lot of making the deeper throws and the harder throws. He was very hesitant. But on the plus side, I thought the offensive line played better
hmm
than they had all season. Penning in particular, I thought Pete had a good game. Um, I thought McCoy played better. I thought Hurst was probably the biggest weakness on the offensive line. Now, granted, he's playing right guard, so he's a bit out. He's out of position on that, but because Ruiz is on concussion protocol, he was out. Unfortunately, Pete got a concussion too, and
Yeah.
he is in concussion protocol as well. I don't know if he'll be available this week. Ruiz has to come back. One step forward, two step back. It's tough. But let's talk about the giant elephant in the room, Carmichael. I saw your column the other day. Might have been yesterday. I forget what day it was now. Um, your thoughts on Carmichael?
Pete Carmichael, along with Dennis Allen, this is the worst coach. This is the worst coach because shit flows downhill. Um, and Dennis Allen, at the end of the day, is the man in charge. Uh, this is the worst coached Saints team I have seen since the Mike Ditka era of the late '90s. Period.
Yeah.
And like I said in the column, I'm calling for big changes to be made right now. I know a lot of people want Dennis Allen fired, folks. That's not going to happen. It's not. Nor should it at this point at 4 games into the season. But the article you're referring to on Saints News Network, I'm calling for Pete Carmichael to at the very least be stripped of play calling duties, if not fired outright. And I didn't write that lightly. I don't say that lightly because I normally do not advocate major coaching changes in the middle of a season. And by major coach, I consider a major coaching change, obviously the head coach, but also either one of the coordinator positions. But in my opinion, we've seen 21 games with Pete Carmichael as the lead play caller since Sean Payton left. 21 games with Pete Carmichael in that capacity. Uh, as you know, there have been the Saints just had a string of 11 straight games where they held the opponent to 20 points or under. They were only 6-5 in those games.
Yeah.
And in 21 games with Carmichael, the team has averaged 18.7 points per game, including 15 and a half this year, and has achieved under 350 yards of total offense in 13 straight games, including 260 or less 3 times. They've scored 21 or less points in 10 straight games of 12 of their last 13. And the 30-point barrier, which Drew Brees teams used to achieve in their sleep. Peyton Brees teams of a 16-game regular season, the Saints would hit 30 points no less than 12 of those games. No less than. That's minimum. Pete Carmichael's offenses have achieved in 21 games have achieved 30 points 2 times. And one was in what was going to be a blowout loss to Arizona, where they got a couple gimme touchdowns at the end. I could go on and on and on with these horrific stats, but my point is, we've seen enough to know that we've seen enough, and there isn't going to be any magic elixir. You're not going to, folks, you can't just raid another team and pull Ben Johnson or Eric Bieniemy or even John Gruden off the street. If you're going to make a move at offensive coordinator, which, by the way, Dennis Allen did not do this week, but if you're going to make a move at offensive coordinator, the only thing that you can do is promote within. In this case, hand over the play calling duties to Ronald Curry is what I suggested. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's worse. Curry himself, as you pointed out earlier, Curry himself has zero play calling experience, which is a very difficult task. Fans don't realize how difficult a task that is. But my point is, 21 games with Pete Carmichael. You have a trio of dynamic receivers. You have a dynamic running back. This offseason, you told all of us that you got the perfect quarterback for your system, and this offense has gotten worse. It starts with the player execution on the field. I freely admit that. And I will always put the blame on players before I put the blame on coaches. So the players have a lot to answer for too. But the listless play calling, the unimaginative and predictable game plans, the ridiculous play calls on third and short or third and medium. And again, I could go on and on and on. I have seen enough to know that the answer is not Pete Carmichael.
And I think that's one of the reasons why Allen has not made that change, is because he doesn't feel comfortable yet or enough with Curry to know that he's going to be able to call those plays. And the other thing is, you can't just grab somebody off the street,
right,
except for one name. You can't grab anybody off the street because you can't redesign your entire offense, the verbiage and everything else during the season. That can't happen. That's a decision you make in the off season. But I do believe they can get John Gruden to run this system, only because the basis of this entire offense is the West Coast system, the same system that Gruden ran when he was at Philadelphia, when he was in Oakland, Tampa. Some of the terminology may be different, but he and Sean Payton worked together in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. They learned the system. Gruden trained Payton basically in the system. Now, Payton has taken it to the next level, but getting Gruden to call the plays and to be that sounding board for Pete, because my thing is, we'll promote Pete to offensive assistant coach offense, a passing game coordinator, or you hire Gruden, you still keep him as offensive coordinator, and you call Gruden passing game coordinator / play call. And just have Gruden and Carmichael work together, and Gruden says, these are the plays that we're running, I'm calling these plays, and he could be up in the booth where the media can't find his ass. He could be up in the booth talking in Carr's ear, run these plays. These are the plays we're running. Dragon smoke, whatever, And to me, and you touched on it, the big thing you have here is you the plays that Carmichael is calling makes it incredibly difficult for Carr to be successful because he's sending these receivers on routes that just don't work because we saw this yesterday or Sunday. He didn't use the middle at all. Jimmy Graham had 0 targets, 0 pass routes, 0 receptions. I mean, where's the tight end? I get it. Juwan Johnson gets hurt, so you're going, okay, I can't run the Juwan Johnson plays. But you could run Jimmy Graham in those plays. Jimmy Graham's a veteran. He knows what
Yep.
to do.
Yep.
On
Last time I
32,
checked, Michael Thomas.
run those
Last time I
plays.
checked, Michael Thomas is pretty damn good in the middle of the field too.
Yeah, 0 plays middle of the field, and this is what I was talking to you about before we came on the air. I think one of the things that was wrong was Carr didn't practice all week, and I think this
Yeah.
game plan was designed for Winston, where they're going to run a lot of sideline routes, keep Winston away from the middle of the field, where he could technically throw a lot of interceptions, and make him throw sideline routes where it either goes to the receiver or goes out of bounds. You put Carr in there, Carr's recovering from an AC shoulder injury. Maybe I saw a lot of velocity in his passes, but he may have decided to do the checkdowns or thrown short because he didn't trust his own arm enough to make these throws. But whether he did or not, the plays they came up with were terrible against Tampa's defense. Tampa played a soft shell all game, used the sidelines to drive receivers away, and left the middle of the field wide open. So you didn't put any kind of strain or pressure on that defense to cover these things. And like you said, Michael Thomas, where was he in the middle of the field? He got paid a lot of money because he was quote-unquote slant boy. Slant boy would have been damn good on 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
Kamara's running flare-out patterns. When did they start running Kamara on his bread and butter play? The ones where it's run the daylight, where the offensive line pulls one way and Kamara cuts back the other and is getting like 10 yards a carry? They run it in the second half. Nothing in the first half. They run that double reverse, which Pete kind of missed his block, and that's the guy who made the tackle. But why are you running a double reverse there?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Why are you doing that? That's not the time to call a double reverse. It's like Sean Payton's infamous tight end reverse against Tampa back in 2008. Learn your lesson. Adjust your play calling. Make better decisions. Put the ball in places where Carr can be successful. If you're worried about and this may be why Graham wasn't targeted, if you're worried about the pass blocking, you got to keep Graham in to block, because I saw a lot of Landon Young out there. But if you got to keep Graham in to block, then you've got to run Kamara and Thomas in the middle, or use Kamara as a distracting play or decoy play, and draw the defense away, and then have Thomas come in right behind them. When the linebackers chase Kamara, that's a clear-out pattern. None of that was run.
Nope.
That's what's frustrating about Carmichael. People are saying the system's outdated and all these other things. I don't buy that at all.
No.
Because between 28 and 30 teams run this system. The only team that I know for sure doesn't run it is New England, and they run an older system. They run the Ron Earhart system that Bill Belichick learned when he was with the Giants back in '83. And it still works. You just do a little twist here and there, and I think that's what McDaniels is trying to run with the Raiders. Very few teams run the Ron Earhart system, but all these other people who say all this stuff, it's outdated, they need to do this and you do that. Okay, so what system you want to run? You want to run what you see in Madden. You want to run shot plays all game. That's not an offense.
No.
That's no better than what Carmichael's doing right now. I mean, Carmichael is, if you want to take this in Madden terms, Carmichael is running, he's playing Madden. And when he was beating the computer in the first quarter, he beat him with Texas. He beat him with this other play. And when the computer starts doing its bullshit, where, it's coming back on you, and you just keep running the same plays because they worked earlier and they're not working anymore. And what kind of bullshit is this? That's what he does. So I feel like they need a different play caller. I like Ronald Curry. I'd like to see Ronald Curry get the opportunity to try it. But if you don't have the confidence in Ronald Curry, you got to pull the trigger and bring Gruden in, because Carmichael needs help, and he's not going to get any better. We're going to play the Patriots this week. Patriots are in a lot of trouble too. They've lost, several key defenders. They look like absolute garbage against the Cowboys Sunday after the Saints game. That was my other game I got to watch. Dallas and the Patriots. And then that night was the Jets and the the Kansas City Chiefs. Best meme I saw the night about that game anyway was it was a picture of Taylor Swift and Aaron Rodgers, and it says, and they're both in the suites in the dome, at MetLife Stadium, and it said one is an entitled diva who has spent their entire life in a privileged position, and the other is Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. So it was really entertaining. The Taylor Swift phenomena. It's ridiculous. I get it, and I know why the NFL loves this.
Oh yeah,
because you got a whole bunch of teenage girls watching the NFL for the first time. Yeah, there was another one that said Travis Kelce is checking out in the booth looking at Taylor Swift, and it's Zach Wilson who was checking out Travis Kelce's mom. But back to Carmichael. I know he's going to try it one more week, but it's time to hit the panic button. If you do not beat New England, and what I mean by beat New England, you've got to beat them scoring offensive touchdowns, and you got to score more than 20 points. So we're talking 21 to 28 points, which is a huge challenge for this team. And I'm talking a 3-touchdown performance, whether it's by Kamara, Carr, and say Taysom Hill or something. You've got to do something because right now you cannot succeed with this kind of offense. Teams are figuring you out. I don't even know what they do well. What is their bread and butter play? What do you think their bread and butter play is?
They don't have any, and that's part of the problem. Pete Carmichael has shown a consistent inability to design plays to get the ball to his best players, which, by the way, is football 101. I was trying to come up with a sarcastic answer, to your question, something along the lines of, 5-step drop and sack. But
Calvin got
it. Calvin, you beat me to it. But no, I mean, and worse than teams figuring you out, as you correctly pointed out, because in the NFL that'll happen. This coaching staff, and I'm including the defensive coaches too, by the way, but this coaching staff.
We're going to talk about the defense in a minute.
Yeah. This coaching staff in general has shown a disturbing lack of ability to, make any in-game adjustments whatsoever. And it's affected the defensive side, no doubt, as you said, as you pointed out, we'll get into in a minute. Offensively, that literally leaves you absolutely helpless.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints under Carmichael, these 21 games, they've been okay on their first drive. It's not unusual for them to put a field goal on the board because they still can't get in the end zone, but at least they'll put points on the board out in their first drive. After that, they're absolutely it's an infuriating combination between heartless, clueless, and brainless. But at least it's consistent. Um, yeah, in seven of their 10 drives, they technically had 11, but one was a kneel down. In seven of their 10 drives, they totaled 51 yards on Sunday. 51
Yeah.
yards in seven drives. I, that enhances my flu-like symptoms greatly.
I was going to say, I'm going to quit calling this a West Coast offense. I'm going to call it Allen's high school dating life offense. It's it's frustrating. You don't score, and you come home and you come home with a lot of regret. I mean, it's just it's I really liked how they came out to start this game Sunday. I thought that was a very crisp drive
Yeah,
because that's one of the other things that's missing from this game, from this offense, is tempo. Peyton used to emphasize tempo, tempo, tempo. Come out the huddle quick, snap the ball quick, get the ball out your hand,
yeah.
and you're not seeing that tempo. So when they came out against Tampa, I'm like, this is great. This is tempo. They're getting a lot of positive yards. They're converting. They went for it. They didn't get it on third down. They went for it on fourth down, picked it up. I had no problem with that. It was great tempo. Then they run the double reverse, and it's like the wheels came off. They just crash into a ditch, and they don't know what to do after that.
Hmm.
That's what needs to change because there were series, there always are series, and you can think of y'all, you guys can all think of it too, when Peyton was the head coach, where the Saints offense lacked tempo, struggled to get first downs. They just didn't look very crisp. Okay, um, but Peyton would call some plays to get that tempo going, whether it's a 2 minute drill to try and establish tempo, get Breeze some easy throws, some bread and butter throws, some quick runs, screen passes, whatever it took to get the offense moving, because it was always like once they got that first down, once they got that first couple of first downs and got it going, suddenly now, okay, now we have our tempo. Now we know what we
Hmm.
want to do. Now we're going. That's not happening. And to me, if you have an offense that's struggling like this, you're going to need your defense to get turnovers, to get your offense in better field position so you can go ahead and at least play on a short field. Because if your offense can't run 75 and 80-yard drives because they can't establish tempo, let them have 40 and shorter fields. And we didn't get that Sunday at
No,
all. We
no.
got a horrible defensive performance Sunday. There is no way with a Dennis Allen coach defense that you should be giving up a 17 play, 80-yard drive with either 3 or 4 first down conversions on third down. You get the third down you want, and you cannot stop them. There's
Hmm.
no way that should happen. And all the talk about Lattimore is Mike Evans' daddy and all this other stuff. Mike Evans owned Lattimore Sunday. He owned him. Um, and we're gonna talk about more about Prentice in a minute because Bob, I think you and I talked about him off the air. I don't know if we talked about him on the air, but Prentice, he was one of my goats
Oh yeah.
because and not GOAT as greatest of all time. GOAT as in you helped cost us the game. You fumbled and you dropped an easy first down pass that hit you in the hands. So it's that's one of the things that pissed me off. But anyway, this defense, you need to go and I know what Calvin's talking about here. That's Australian soccer or rugby, the Blacks. I know this because I have a book about them. So when I first saw it, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? But I know what he's talking about. But yeah, I thought the defensive line, except for Brian Brzee, I thought the defensive line was terrible.
Yep.
I thought the secondary in general was terrible because I saw nothing out of Taylor that we saw 2 weeks ago in Green Bay, where I thought he was one of my players of the game despite the penalty. Come on, come back. Okay, I thought Yedem looked like a guy who was a backup guy out there playing too soft a coverage, and I thought the safeties were horrible. Lonnie Johnson was probably your best safety, and he got hurt. And I thought Pete Werner, after I was singing praises of how good he had been playing the first 3 weeks, looked terrible Sunday too. It was all three levels.
Yep.
You allow Baker Mayfield to do this to you.
Bob,
freaking
Mayfield.
You chime in, Bob, because I'm gonna take over and just go on a rant. But chime in. I mean, what outside of Brian Brzee, who else played worth a damn on that defense Sunday?
Not a single soul. Not a single soul. They were manhandled. By a Tampa Bay offensive line. And don't get me wrong. I mean, Wirfs is a generational player, but he's playing a new position. You have three new faces along the Tampa Bay interior line, and a converted guard at right tackle, and you were manhandled by a Tampa Bay offense that was averaging a league worst 2.8 per carry. You gave up 133 rushing yards. Baker freaking Mayfield picked up 3 huge first downs with his legs.
Mm-hmm.
Baker freaking Mayfield picked apart your secondary because you, Dennis Allen, and you, Joe Woods, were too scared to play your normal aggressive type of coverage just because you were down 3 defensive backs. Don't forget, not only a Debo, but the dumbassery that is Marcus May. And the injury to Jordan Howden, and then you go and lose Lonnie Johnson, but you still had Lattimore, you still had Alontae Taylor, and you're obviously high on Yedem because you cut Bradley Roby. So at least you can play aggressively against Tampa Bay's receivers. No, you played off. The only one that played consistent man coverage was Lattimore, who had his second straight bad outing, in my opinion. And you let no-name Buccaneers receivers eat you alive. Chris Godwin ate you alive, but as much as the Saints secondary is kryptonite to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin is kryptonite to the Saints secondary. So that's kind of a wash. You let Tampa Bay no-name Tampa Bay receivers eat you alive because you played off-ball coverage. You didn't mix it up at all, and shocking, you didn't make any in-game adjustments to try to get pressure on Baker Mayfield or disrupt Baker freaking Mayfield at all. So as much as we are blasting the Saints offensive coaches, and rightfully so, the Saints defensive coaches for the last 2 weeks now deserve a lot of criticism by their own right. And, like I said before with the offense, I'm not putting it all on the coaches because you just listed, Alan, a disturbing list of players that had bad outings or played poorly. Tackling in general was horrible. Brian Brzee was the only one, and Brzee is playing like a man possessed, by the way. Everybody, I don't know where Carl Granderson has gone. Cam Jordan's getting into the backfield. He's just not finishing plays. Demario Davis, he steamed a step late all day long on Sunday. Pete Werner looked like an absolute JV junior varsity player in the open field, and you already blasted the secondary. So yeah, this defense I thought was horrible on Sunday.
And that was the thing. I said if Lattimore could take away Mike Evans, who was Baker Mayfield's security blanket, that means you can roll coverage to help Yidam against Godwin. And I felt Taylor could handle whoever was going to be the slot guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you make Baker Mayfield hold that ball. And I was saying you could shut down the run. They can't run the football, so Mayfield's going to have to throw the ball 40 times to beat the Saints. I like that matchup because he's not going to play and throw the ball 40 times and beat the Saints. It's not possible. But none of that happened. And I felt the other problem that they had when Yidam finally got the first turnover. He long drive, get the ball in the end zone. He picked that pass off. I was trying to hear the official explanation, but it just didn't ring true to me. They said his momentum carried him out the end zone. I saw his foot touch the ground, but I didn't see both. I didn't see both feet touch the ground, and I felt like he touched the white as well, which was the goal line. So that's a touchback.
Mm-hmm.
You get the ball in I think it's either the 20 or the 25-yard line. Yes, that we're going to talk about him too. You get that ball in the 20 or 25-yard line. You're not handing the ball off to Prentice. You're running basically your offense to try and get a deep field goal before halftime, so it's 7-6, which is a winnable game. Regardless, you kept them out of the end zone. So even if you go down 7-3, it's still a one-possession game. But you fumble the ball, you give Tampa new life. To me, between the 17-play drive and that turnover that resulted in a touchdown, that was the turning point in the game, and the game was basically over from that point because your offense can't score points, your defense isn't going to get enough turnovers to force these guys out. It's an unwinnable game. It's an unwinnable game. And yeah, the punter is very frustrating, and this is the problem that we had. Now, Blake Gillikin just got signed by the Cardinals, I think, today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this was the issue with the punter battle. Nobody really won that game. You just went with a guy who you thought could be different than the other guy, and he's inconsistent, just as inconsistent as Blake Gillikin was. He gets a nice big deep punt once, and then the next time he's kicking the ball to midfield. The Tampa Bay's getting the ball at midfield. They can play the field position game. Yeah, he's going to have to. He's got to make these changes because he's got to feel the pressure. You've got to make these changes. And the bad part about this, I think Ralph Marlboro asked this on Twitter, how many teams have made an offensive coordinator change or play caller change and had it worked out? And I said, well, my most famous one I can think of was when Jim Fossil took the play calling duties away from Sean Payton.
Yeah, ironically.
Yeah, and he said, I'm all in. We're going to go to the playoffs. I'm putting all my chips in. He took over the play calling and was now going to run the offense. Jim Fossil's an offensive-minded coach. He was a special teams coach. He was an offensive coach. Dennis Allen is now an offensive coach. Now, the defense stinks, and you say, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm putting, I'm taking and putting Joe Brown on notice. I'm going to call the defensive plays because I want our defense to play better. Then that's different. That is different. And I would feel better about that than I would Dennis Allen taking over the offense. And that's the issue. Ronald Curry's the only guy it seems to be that you could trust. Maybe the receivers coach. He hasn't called any plays yet. But maybe him, because I think he called plays. Did he call plays in Tennessee?
I think he did. I think he was their offensive coordinator. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your only other option there. So I mean,
Well, it's actually not. I thought it was coming into the show, and it just now hit me. Who was the offensive coordinator before Pete Carmichael got promoted in 2009?
yeah, it was Marone, Doug
Mm-hmm.
Marone. Yeah,
Not that
yeah.
I did. I'm not sure that would be any better. Yeah, look, neither Alan or I or folks are saying that any of these guys would be better. We're just both in agreement. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Alan. We're just both in agreement that something needs to change, and it needs to start with the coaches.
Yeah.
We're both saying pretty much you should give Ronald Curry a shot. But even at that point, if I give Ronald Curry a shot, which by the way they should have done this week, then you either keep Carmichael around in an advisory role, because the man can put together game plans during the week. I don't think anybody can deny that. And or you bring in John Gruden from the outside and you
Mm-hmm.
let him kind of mentor Curry. Either way, this is something that should have happened on Monday morning, but Dennis Allen seems determined to be the man that goes down. Not only the man that goes down with the ship, but the man captaining the ship from the captain's seat, saying, "I don't see anything wrong here."
I don't know the conversations they're having in house. I don't think that it's that level. I don't think he's the captain of the Titanic yet, because I think he knows there's a problem, but he thinks it's fixable with the people they've got, and that's a mistake. Um, uh, I don't know how many more games is he going to lose. I mean, because let me grab the schedule right here again. You've got the Patriots Sunday, then you're at the Texans, who just blew out another team with terrible offense,
Yeah.
the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Texans are like a team that's rising. Um, you got Jacksonville on Thursday night at home. If you
Now,
try and
go ahead. Yeah, I
I was
think
say,
you were about to say what I was going to say.
if you're trying to make it to week 11, the bye week, to make a change, your season's lost, because you're not going to win. You're not going to win, but maybe 3 games at the way this offense is playing right now. And you're not. If you think you're going to tank to get a top quarterback and get a new coaching staff, that's not going to happen either. But right now, Detroit looks like a loss. Minnesota probably is going to be a loss. Jacksonville will probably be a loss at home. So maybe Indy. I don't know how they'll handle that quarterback.
Right, that's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, these are all winnable games, but you're going to lose them because your offense can't score more than 15 points in a ball game, and you can't have that.
The only other possibility would be Jacksonville is a Thursday night game. So if you're if you're Dennis Allen and eyeing up a potential offensive coordinator change, then you do have a few extra days. It's almost like half a bye week. But still, that's 3 games from now. You're taking an awful big risk. Because if you go 0-3. Then you're sitting at what? A 2-5 record. You're the same kind of hole that you found your team in midseason the last 2 years when you missed the playoffs despite a late season run. So Dennis Allen, this staff, this team cannot afford to be willing to give away games, which the way this offense is playing, and you just alluded to it, you're essentially putting your team at risk. at giving away games. If you're scoring 15 points per game, and it just unable to sustain anything at all offensively.
Right, right. Maybe he wants to see how this week goes. Maybe he thinks his offense and defense can get well against the Patriots. I can't see that.
Mm-mm.
Um, and that's the thing with making the call for Gruden. I know he's got all that baggage. I know that. But it's too late to get a new offensive coordinator, new terminology, and everything else. All I'm thinking about is getting somebody who knows this system and can understand the terminology and just call the plays. That's what I want. I
Yeah.
want a guy who calls the plays, and that's what you need. Um, I don't think that's going to happen. But Alvin Kamara even said it without saying it. We have to have some uncomfortable conversations right now. Um, this is what Alvin Kamara is used to seeing. What's behind me right now?
Hmm.
That's 2009, but that's what he's used to seeing, and we're not seeing that.
I'll tell you,
So,
Alan, the most telling thing about that Camara interview that you're referring to, Alvin said, and I quote, "It's been over 2 years since we had that offense." Alvin, it's actually been closer to three, if 3 seasons, if we're being honest.
mhm.
But how long has Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael been in charge? So that's what I took. I read between the lines at that statement. I don't think it was Alvin, misreading a calendar. I think he was saying something very, very specific with that statement.
Yeah, yeah. Because the 2021 Saints were not explosive either. We can't fool ourselves with that. They
No.
had a hard time scoring points, too. And that's with Sean Payton calling the plays. So it's granted you had terrible receivers and you had an injured Alvin Kamara and injured quarterbacks and everything else, but you still it's a combination of players not executing and an offense that cannot get into gear and find that rhythm and find that tempo. It's just not happening. And if your defense isn't playing at an elite level that it needs to play every week to get your offense going, because that's what you're hanging your hat on. We were talking
Hmm.
about bread and butter earlier. Dennis Allen's bread and butter is a defense. And his attitude is if I keep him under 20 points, I can win this ball game. And he only 6-5 because your offense isn't getting enough points. Because your offense should be able to score more than 20 points. And I can handle 20 to 17 games. I don't like them, but I can
Right.
handle that. What I can handle is leaving opportunities on the field, and that's what this offense is doing consistently. They're leaving opportunities on the field because of bad play calling, because of poor execution, poor blocking, missed passes, fumbles, whatever. Um, yeah, we just, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, we did have a better offense last year at, at times for games, but not consistently. If we played the right teams, we looked okay. But for the most part, we did not have a great offensive system. Um, so it's it's just frustrating. And if you're not going to trust Ronald Curry, if you're not going to trust, I just drew a blank on the poor receivers coach's name. Um,
Yeah. Cody Barnes. Cody
Cody
Barnes.
Burns. Thank you. I kept wanting to say Kip. I don't know why. Cody Burns. If you don't trust either of those guys to call plays right now, then you have to do that. You have to make that decision because I still think we can win this game against New England,
Uh huh.
but I do not have a good feeling about how the offense is going to play against New England. I mean,
No.
how do you see the game playing out next week? I think the defense plays a lot better, but
Yeah, I think the defense plays a lot better too. They better. Otherwise, it's time to be absolutely terrified about the outcome of this season.
mhm.
But folks, the New England Patriots are not a good team. They're just not. And they are a much worse offensive team than they are a defensive team. Say what you want about Bill Belichick, he knows how to put a defensive game plan together. And yeah, the Patriots are going to be missing two of their biggest, defensive names, maybe as many as four defensive starters. But Belichick has just dissected this, Pete Carmichael offense, and if it's hard to feel any sense of confidence about the Saints offense going into this game. The Saints defense, I feel like, can absolutely squash the Patriots attack, hopefully come away with a few turnovers, realistically come away with a few turnovers.
Mhm.
It's just, if they can do it in a position of the field where that flips field position and turns into easy points, then the Saints should be able to win this game even going away. That's the way I see it shaking out. And that's frankly the only way I feel that the Saints do win this game is if the defense shoulders the load again.
Yeah, the Patriots the past 3 weeks, well, the first 3 weeks of the season, especially the last week 2 and week 3, they had this rally in the fourth quarter to get it close and just missing converting fourth downs to
Hmm.
first downs by a yard. So it's not like the defense can just roll them over and then sit back and let them do that bullshit they did against Carolina, where you play a soft zone and let them get out of bounds and everything else. You got to keep the pedal down. You got to keep going after them, keep being aggressive. And that's my concern right now about this defense is they're not aggressive enough right now. But keep being aggressive and make make the Patriots pay when they try and come back. Yeah, if Mac Jones takes off running, they're not going to tackle him.
No.
I mean, I think Brian Brzee earned more snaps to start running him in there, playing him a lot more because I know Brian Brzee is going to beat whoever he's got to block.
Hmm.
But this is the game where Kamara needs to go off. This is the game where Taysom Hill needs to go off. This is the game where Chris Olave better have his head on straight
Yeah.
because I'm ready to put my foot up his ass for that kind of crappy performance he played out there last Sunday. That was even more frustrating than Carmichael was to see him not complete routes
Yeah.
and to see him not attack that ball on the one big deep throw, which could have been a big game changer. Wait
Hmm.
for it to come to you? No, don't wait for that ball to come to you. Go get it. Especially if you're just barely beating coverage. Draw the
Yeah.
damn flag. You have
Yeah.
to draw the foul.
Because Derek
Get the
Carr put
ball.
an awful lot of air under that ball too. That was not a. It was an accurately thrown ball, but he put an awful lot of air under it. There wasn't exactly a frozen rope. So, like you said, that left plenty of time for Antoine Winfield to make a great play, but B, a seasoned wideout adjusts his body, goes up and tries to make that play, and usually draws the pass interference call.
Yeah, then you get the ball first and goal at the 1. That's a Taysom Hill play. That's an Alvin Kamara play. You got a touchdown. That's your touchdown right there. But no, you wait for the ball to drop in your hands where easily he just sticks his arm out and blocks it. And they're going to let that go every time.
Yeah.
Um, but him not finishing routes was pissing me off. They even talking about it on television, but I saw it a few times, and I saw him do the same shit in person in the last game of last season against the Carolina Panthers. You cannot play that way. You've got to play like Michael Thomas. Play like every down is your last down because you're more talented than Thomas because you're faster and you have better hands than Thomas. But Thomas makes himself a great receiver. Um, Olave, all I heard was how good of a camp you had, and I didn't see it Sunday. I felt like you just kind of half stepped it because you were pouting you didn't get the ball early enough in this game. You felt like you weren't really part of this game plan. Alvin Kamara was the game plan, so you just weren't going to try. And that's unacceptable. That's Brandon Cook's territory there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. And he should be embarrassed. The entire offense should be angry at him. By the way, and the Michael Thomas and the other veterans in that locker room, offense and defense, should be in Chris Olave's face. Should have been on Sunday and Monday. And in his face all week. We haven't seen a lot of that from Olave. But like you said, I agree with you about the season finale against Carolina. I felt like the whole team quit that day, though.
yeah,
Um,
they did. They did.
but frankly, I felt like most of the team quit on Sunday as well. But I think it was very telling to not only the plays that we saw Olave, kind of not kind of half-assing his routes, giving up on plays, but also on the sideline. The little individual powwow sessions that you see. Sometimes you could see this a lot better at the games than you can on through TV cameras. But there was some footage where we saw Carr talking to Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara. I think Jimmy Graham was in one of those conversations. I saw 3 or 4 shots of that kind of conversation. Not one was Olave involved in any of them. And
Yep.
I think that was very telling too. And that's not. I'm not ready to throw him under the bus yet. But you mentioned Brandon Cook's territory. Yeah, that's what got Cook shipped out of here. And I'm not ready to put Olave in that category yet. But the kind of bullshit that he pulled on Sunday was the exact kind of bullshit that Brandon Cooks and the other so-called diva receivers of the league, the type of receivers that get shipped around to 4 or 5 different teams in their career. That's the kind of bullshit that they pull.
Yeah, you cannot. There are going to be games where you're not the focus of the offense. It's going to be that way. And like I said, I thought this game plan was directed more for Jameis to run with the idea we're going to get this ball in Kamara's hand as much as possible. And I think Olave just kind of flipped through the pages and going, "Where's my plays? Where are my plays in this thing?" And he didn't see any, so he said, "All right, fine. I'm just going to go out there and collect my paycheck and do what I do." But and so when they called that shot play, rather than make that his moment, he just kind of went through the motions. So yeah, that's why as much as Carmichael's driving me nuts with his play calling, when you do get opportunities, you got to take advantage of them because they're not
Mm-hmm.
coming again. If you want the more vertical routes, you want to see a more vertical offense. We got to make Carmichael feel like he can run those plays and challenge him to run these plays. I mean, I know Juwan Johnson pulled his calf muscle in warm-ups, and that probably screwed up some plays he wanted to call and left Jimmy Graham out there as the only tight end on the roster who could play because Foster Moreau's still hurt with a bad
Mm-hmm.
ankle. So he didn't want to risk throwing the ball to Graham, but you need to get Graham involved in this offense.
Yeah.
You need to get these things happening. And it's it's a circle, okay? Bad play calls coupled with bad performance or bad playing, creates this circle. Then we got to sit and watch crap, And yeah, I think he would have. I agree with you, Jimmy Gumbo. I think Sean Payton would have been waiting for him.
Hell
Come
yeah.
on the sideline, pissed off, and I hate to keep bringing Peyton up, but you have to because you're basically running Peyton's system, which is still a successful system. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
system, but you got to know what plays to call, when to call them, and you got to know take advantage of matchups. There were a ton of matchups against Tampa that Sean Payton would have exploited all day long, and we didn't do it. So somebody's got to sit there and tell Carmichael, these are your matchups. You want to get Shaheed on this guy because this guy's hurt. He can't run. Get Shaheed one-on-one with him. Now, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to do that because we're going to send Olave across the middle to draw the safeties away. So we have a one-on-one with Shaheed versus the Carlton Davis, the hurt guy. You know, we're going to – the linebackers are fast. So what do? Well, let's run Kamara across the field on a crossing pattern, make them both follow Kamara, and then have Michael Thomas cut the other way, wide open. I trust Michael Thomas 7-8 yards deep to pick up a first down. Run those plays. And they're not doing that. He's calling a lot of dumb plays that take away his playmakers.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's maddening. All right. Back to New England. Is this the get right game for the offense?
No, it's not. I don't think there is a get right game for the offense until the offense makes the changes that they need to to change themselves. Again, I realize that New England is going to be missing their two best defensive players. Again, could be missing as many as 4 starters. But the Bill Belichick watches his film and he knows what to do against this Pete Carmichael offense. So no, I don't think it's a get right game. For this offense, I think it's a strong possibility that the offense could get a little bit of confidence by not blowing the game. But if you're asking me if this is going to be the game where they put up 24 to 30 points, absolutely, I'd bet my house against it.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've been saying it all night, but I wanted to ask that question because I feel the same way.
Fair.
I think this is a game where they probably can break the 20-point barrier. I think they score at least one touchdown offensively, and I think it'll be down the middle, a seam route or something down the middle because he's been hearing this. So they're going to take that shot play down the middle. I think it's a game where you can get a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. Belichick is on his 9th life, if that's a good analogy. He is holding on. He wants to retire, but he is holding on. Big win, or he's going for his 300th win. He's been chasing Don Shula. Let me see something here. How many career wins does Bill Belichick have? Because it might be his 300th.
I think he needs 20 to get Shula, if I'm not mistaken.
I know I meant to look this up before we went on the air. He is at 330. Okay, he's at 330. And yeah, he needs 17 to tie Shula because Shula's got 347. So he is hanging around this year and next year to try and pass Shula. He does not want to be here in 2025. He does not want to be on that sideline in 2025. So he is desperate for a win. We got to stop it. I mean, I do not want to. I've seen a lot of historical landmarks in coaching and in player history fall the week they play the Saints. Walter Payton got past Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice passed Jim Brown, I think, against the Saints. I don't need any more of these things. I don't want him to get 331 against the Saints. But yeah, that's the only reason why he's still coaching because I think he's done. I'm watching his body language on the sideline, and the excitement is gone. He's not interested in building another program. He's just riding it out. Um, Jimmy Gumbo is asking a good question here. Yeah, I think it will. It'll come from Taysom or Kamara if they have a TD. Um, if they have another low scoring loss, yes, I think that does. And that's not a reason to cheer for that. But I think if they don't score, if they all they do is score field goals, or they get in the red zone and don't get it, or can't get to the red zone, I think he has to make that change. Um,
I think he only makes the change if Mickey Loomis or Mrs. Benson come to him and say, "You make the change, or we make the change at head coach." I think that's the
yeah,
only way this happens.
I think Loomis has that conversation with him. And you don't fire Pete Carmichael. You wait until after the season's over with to let him go.
Yeah,
He'll retire. Because remember, Carmichael didn't want this job to begin with.
right.
You know,
Now we know why.
Carmichael told him, I don't want to do this. They allegedly went on a search this offseason to try and find a different offensive coordinator, and they couldn't get one. They didn't find one they liked better. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I mean, how hard did they look?
Right.
But if you look at the NFL right now, the Steelers, the Giants, the Panthers, because the Panthers hate Brian Young right now. They hate him. They hate that whole coaching staff. I'm old enough to remember when I was reading all off season. Ooh, Frank Reich is putting together this all-star coaching staff, and Frank Reich's going to have a great coaching staff. And the Panther fans like, fuck all that. I mean, we have a shit offense. We won't win a game, and we traded all of our picks away to go get Bryce Young, and he's not ready to play yet. So I see that because I'm friends with the guys who run the Cat Chronicles podcast. I see the commentary on it, but I think if they don't score an offensive touchdown, or if all they do is get field goals this week, I think they do. I think Loomis does have that conversation with him, and I think that's the case where Carmichael gets booted to assistant coach, some kind of title, off consultant or advisor, or just stays as offensive coordinator, and then you get a designated play caller, and that'll be the change. But I don't know when that happens. But there are a lot of bad offenses right now.
There are.
Matt Canada with Pittsburgh. The Jets' offense is horrible because that's Nathaniel Hackett. Despite what you saw against the Chiefs, that's a terrible offense. The Vikings' offense is struggling. The Chargers can put up a lot of points. They just can't finish games. The Raiders' offense is terrible. The Bengals' offense is terrible. And it's beyond just a bad calf muscle for Joe Burrow. They just look terrible. They're fighting in the locker room. So there's a lot of bad offenses right now in the league. That doesn't excuse the Saints. It's just when you're watching these games, the Bears' offense is garbage. When you're watching these games play now, you're just like, this is shit. Why am I watching this? I don't need to watch this. If I wanted to watch terrible football, I'm going to go put on, Nebraska versus, I don't know, Buffalo, something like that. I mean, that's terrible football, too. I don't know why he came back another year, Calvin, other than out of loyalty. I think, and that's why you really can't fire Pete, because he's been extremely loyal. You just kind of give him a sending off. Look, we're going to push you out the door, but you just tell me you're retiring, and we give you the big thank you and a good send off, and thanks for all years of service, and adios. Do you have any other comments on that?
No, and I wrote about that exact scenario about what I think should happen, what I would do if I was in charge. Pete has achieved a lot, for this franchise. Most of it has been behind the scenes, but that doesn't take away from the achievements any. We've seen his shortcomings for the last 21 games. What his weaknesses are. His weaknesses is as an offensive, as a play caller, and a game decision maker on game, and a decision maker on game day. And that's what they're asking him to do, and it's been a colossal failure. So no, I don't think you fire him. Um, I think you just kind of you kind of take the play calling duties away from him. You ask him to go back to what he does best, help design the game plan during the week, and be an advisor to Ronald Curry or whoever you deem to be the play caller for the rest of the season, and then you hit the reset button. Even if you make the playoffs and you save Dennis Allen's job, you still need to hit the reset button for the offensive coaching staff, no matter what.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm still frustrated with Doug Marone. I mean, we were talking about,
Yeah.
oh, this is the play. Um, this is where I learned about the punt rule against the Patriots here. Andre Hastings returned this punt all the way to I think the Patriots 20-yard line. It was a free ball because the Patriots touched it, but the Saints, an offensive player, can pick the ball up and run as far as he wants to go. And if he turns the ball over or something and it goes out of bounds, it's still Saints ball and it would be a touchback. It's an archaic rule, but they let this go. This is from 1997. You're watching poor Danny Werfel get his ass kicked back here, but the Saints almost beat the Patriots in this game. So that's a very young Pete Carroll as head coach of the New England Patriots too.
Scumbag Pete Carroll.
Yeah, that was a touchdown from Andre Hastings that they ruled he was juggling when he hit the ground, and that lost the game. You can kind of see it there. I don't know. It's an old broadcast from CBS, but they say he trapped it, and he really didn't trap it. He's got his hands under that ball. You can kind of get a better look here. You see his hands come under the ball like that. But,
Well, and in Goodell's NFL today, that would be a catch if you're wearing the right uniform.
oh yeah, if you're one of the favorite teams, yeah, it's a catch. Or if you're playing the Saints, that's a catch. Saint Colts game. I don't know who's going to even be quarterbacking that game. It might still be Gardner Minshew, because that quarterback he's taking a lot of shots.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, I took my son to that Colts Saint game in 2003, I think it was, where Peyton Manning just destroyed us. I mean, it was ugly. It was like he threw 6 touchdown passes, something like that. That was not a good day. So Bob, do you think they win Sunday?
I do, because like I said, I do not think the Patriots are a good team whatsoever. I just painted the only scenario that I see them winning in is that the defense shoulders the load, gets a couple turnovers, and things like that. So I think it'll be a low-scoring game, probably a one-score win. But yeah, I do see the Saints coming out of here with a victory.
I think so too. I think if they don't win this game, it's time to hit the full panic button. But I expect them to win this game because I just think the Patriots just don't have anything. They don't have a good running game. They don't have a good passing game. Mac Jones gets hit a lot, and I think defensively they're just beat up. Too beat up to stand up to the Saints. That's Ben Coates. I think that was Benjamin Watson, maybe? No, it can't be Benjamin Watson.
No, that was Brady. If it was 87, that was Ben Coates.
It was 82. Oh, you know who that probably was? Joey Galloway. That's probably who that was.
Yeah.
82. Yeah, 87 is Ben Coates, and that's Adam Vinatieri. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think this is the game the Saints have to get. I think this is a game they have to win. You have to go to 3-2 and kind of get yourself straight. I don't know if they're going to get over 17 points, but unfortunately, that's probably enough to beat the Patriots. But I, this is the game where they've got to do it. They've got to get over 20 points because otherwise, uh, the criticism is just going to get even worse.
Hmm.
You know. Um, Bob, what do you have going on in the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night?
More post mortem, for the offense, possible solutions. We're going to break down some of the things, and Brendan and I did it, briefly in our post game, show for PSF. We're going to break down some of the very few things, that we saw the Saints do well on Sunday, and really in the last 2 weeks, and talk about if that's enough of a building block to move forward. So we're gonna. Since it's the middle of the week, it's time to start painting a positive spin towards the following week. We're gonna do our
Mm-hmm.
best to do that for you, but it's hard not to dwell on the negative with the types of losses that these last two have been. But yeah, we'll do our best. That's our word.
The only thing they do well is kick field goals. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Um, yeah, this, and you're right, Jerry. This is a wake up call game. They've got to get better because the criticisms will just get worse. Even in a win, if they don't score offensive touchdowns, they don't score in the red zone. It'll get a lot worse. Um, because this is the kind of game where you've got to do it. Anna, you've got a Giants game, Saints Giants game. If the Giants keep playing the way they're playing, this is going to that's going to be a paraplegic pillow fight because it's going to be that incompetent. Neither team can score. My God, that would be just miserable. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and Bob, thank you for sticking it out. I know you're still under the weather. Um, Next week we'll talk about the Patriots game. I'm going to be out of town the following weekend, so I don't know if I'll be able to watch that game against the Texans, but I'm going to try to. But I'm giving you guys a heads up warning now. So, yeah, yeah, paraplegic pillow fight. That's exactly what it'd be like fighting with pillows with your teeth. Um, but yeah, it's just it's that bad of offenses right now. It really, really is. Um, Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.